Right. Are we streaming? I believe we are. Hey, Major Dad coming to you from the Great White North with the cold hard truth. And the cold hard truth is about stress in your life. And I think about children and stress in my life. And I think about other stressful events in my life. One event was being evicted from my house and divorced and a job change all at the same time. That was fairly stressful. Another fairly stressful time was flying one of those over Iraq at about 12,000 feet in the middle of the night, attempting to get shot at by surface-to-air missiles so we could return fire and destroy the SAM site. That's what we did. But the stress that I have always thought was the most impactful to me is when I looked down at my newborn child and literally thought, what have I done? What have I done? And more importantly, what am I going to do next? And I thought about several things. Yes, babies don't come with the owner's manual. That is a true statement. But humans are not so complicated that if you have a kid, you know that it sleeps a certain way, you feed it this way, you keep it clean that way, and it could thrive to a certain level. Well, with new research and the way to actually measure brain waves, they don't have to drill a screw into your head anymore. They could just put a sensor on it because of technology's changed. They being the research scientists, have determined a whole bunch of things occur from like the 9th month, during the birth process, right after the birth process, and the next 100 days. And I mean, that is like critical for the full potential of this baby, this little human to develop. And that is what the webinar that is coming up on the 9th of November, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're going to have a webinar. We're going to have some authors of books that are leading the charge. I mean, they're cutting edge stuff. One of these books was released on the 27th of August. That's how new this information is. So what you're doing is you're getting in on the cutting edge of a lot of research. The editor of First Time Parent, someone near and dear to me, as in my wife, is the type of person puts something in the magazine, and then 2 or 3 months or 4 months or 5 months later, the other parenting magazines pick up on that subject. So it would behoove you, if you really want to stay at the forefront, and we're talking about the concept we're talking about here is providing you with actionable information that you could apply to your child from in the womb to transitioning into this life. And the first 100 days is critical. One of our authors wrote an entire chapter on the first 100 days, how important it is. So, that being said, what you have here is an opportunity to not experience that level of uncertainty when you look at your child for the first time. You'll be able to look through the lens of someone that has been raising children for 24 years and that's had 5 children. And no, the feeling doesn't change. No matter how many children you have, it's always the same. Even if you're used to them, it's like, wow, what have I done? I've created another life. It's beautiful. How can I give it the absolute best chance at being successful and surviving? And I'll tell you something that many people nowadays take for granted, but it wasn't too long ago that 1 out of every 5 births resulted in a fatality of either the mother, the infant, or the mother and the infant. So not 20%, it's usually mother or the infant. And one small, simple technological breakthrough at the time, one discovery led to reducing that overall number of infant mortality. You're right. Washing your hands. It was washing your hands before you assisted in the delivery process of birthing a baby and bringing a new human into this world. So that is basically it. I'll talk more about the other authors, and we have some authors. The editor herself of First Time Parent Magazine, the influencer as she's known, is going to talk about women's issues directly related to the body and the physiological, mental, and emotional aspects of pregnancy, being pregnant and then not being pregnant. And there's a lot going on. I mean, dads, I had no idea what the female human body goes through to give birth to another human. Well, here's just kind of a quick recap. As soon as the lady gets pregnant, her body has to build a new organ. Yeah, from like scratch, from nothing. We have to create an organ. And then it's going to be this organ is the placenta, right? And the baby, the egg implants in the placenta and lives off this organ. So now we have an organ and a new person sucking all the life out. I mean, not all. A huge percentage of it was explained to me like this: the energy that a woman the energy that a woman exerts during the pregnancy process is just like she's climbing a mountain every day. Just climbing a mountain every day. So that, tell you what, I'll do that. Maybe that's a little bit better instead of looking at my nose. Anyways, so we have this consumption, this another person inside of your wife, and its nutrient demands are just increasing. And what I've found through research, the two prime motivators for the body to start the birthing process is one of two things, or both. The mother cannot simply eat enough calories. She cannot consume enough calories in her diet to feed her and the baby. And humans' head is big. It's big proportionately to the body of the infant. So the body can only accommodate so large an orifice for this head to fit through. So that's another, what's the right word? Evolutionary reason for it's a 9-month process. Anyways, back to the context of this frame of critical time that your wife may be entering into because she's due soon, or maybe you're watching this in the delivery room going, oh, hey, this is good information. I'll remember that. Or are you bringing baby home? Because the couple that leaves to go to the hospital with baby in here has had an absolute transformation in their life. They come back a family, and whether they realize it or not, they have entered into a formal contract with another human. And this contract is this: you give, the baby takes, period. That baby is 100% reliant on you. So you as a parent need to be there. And as the baby grows and develops, then they become more self-serving. They could start figuring things out. But we're talking 2-3 years old before you can actually teach them skills other than feeding themselves. Which brings up another point that we're going to talk about during the webinar is sign language. I've used American Sign Language with my children, and I've talked to parents that have as well. And this is not an exaggeration. You won't really be able to have them talk back to you. You talk to them answer you with words until about a year, maybe a little bit longer than a year, depending on your child's development. But as early as 6 months, you could start to sign. You could start doing American Sign Language with them. American Sign Language for babies. Yeah. If you if you speak it, you know the last one. Anyways, oh, here's one that my daughter invented. It's this and this, and she called that vomiting, getting sick. I don't know where she got that, but interesting. So American Sign Language is something that, once again, the 100 days, and you enter to the fourth trimester, which is a very, very critical time for mommy and baby. And immediately after that, as the baby starts to sit up and interact, start throwing things, they start to, get the whole, I'm putting everything in my mouth because I'm experiencing the world through this orifice. About that time, you could start signing with them, and you would be amazed that, they get it. And I heard on a radio station before that a research scientist and his collaboration were experts on learning and how the human body actually learns. And by their calculation, knowing what we know about learning, they estimated that it should take the average human being of normal intelligence no less than 300 years to learn how to speak a language, speak and understand a language fluently. 300 years. So what we're talking about here is there's parts of the brain that there's higher levels in the brain that they just don't understand. And what I'm telling you is, the reality of it is, you could communicate with your new baby at 6 months. I'm just saying, that is not unreasonable. I have done it twice. So it's, as long as the child can see and hear, you could teach them sign language. Things like that will be talked about in the webinar as well. There is, let me look at my notes here real quick. I guess you guys go, you smoke them if you got them. Our other doctor, Dr. Cook, will be talking about the nuances of same-sex parenting. And as I mentioned with her today, that it's kind of not in the venue of this, other than the co-parent providing as much support to the pregnant parent as possible, using the same things that we're talking about. So it doesn't matter about anything but the child. That's what the focus of all of this is remember this, the overarching principle of the focus of this webinar is the maximal benefit of the child. You have to do some things to affect that change and that benefit. So, and we'll tell you how to do it. This lady, Dr. Bethany Cook, will talk about sleep deprivation, the loss of identity, baby blues, and communications. The first doctor, I did not mention her name, is Dr. Gail and Gross, and she's going to talk about the first 100 days. I mean, let's think about this for a moment. Childbirth nowadays is fairly, let's look 100 years back, 1860. A lot has happened in the last 100 years. We won't even get into the computer age and why I'm able to sit here in Alaska and talk to you on your desk in Rio de Janeiro or Australia. But it's a wonderful thing. It brings the world closer together. It doesn't separate it, in my opinion. Anyways, one of the things that Dr. Bethany Cook was going to talk about is sleep deprivation. And I happen to be an expert in sleep deprivation, having been in the military for 22 years and then being a international airline freight pilot. That doesn't matter where you are in the world, you know one thing, it's dark. And if it's not dark, it's going to get dark. So when you start your job, when you start your flying, that's why that overnight is such a key word in that whole overnight, express. So I know all about sleep deprivation, not to mention times in the Army that being in the talk with the 3rd Ranger Battalion after being up for 2 or 3 days or 4 days in that band of excellence that they thought was like 40%. And I thought to myself, you'd crash jets and everything else in that band of excellence. But if you trip and fall, it's one thing. Anyways, back to sleep deprivation. I'll give you a big one right now that I think you would benefit from. And that is, if you do have an infant, I would highly suggest either getting a green or red light bulb for your changing table. And you may say, why? Or you may say, hey, that's a good idea. Or you may say, done it. Glad I did. Here's why. And if baby wakes up in the middle of the night, which you've been trying to get the baby to sleep through for probably the first 3 weeks of life, but I'll tell you another way to accelerate that process, which is huge. Anyways, when you wake the child up and in the night from perhaps a REM cycle, as long as there's not white light shining on him, making him believe it may be daytime and waking his system up, the red light doesn't stimulate his eyes, which don't activate certain neuroreceptors, and you don't have this chemical thing called waking up happening to him because they're not being stimulated by light. So anyways, my nose, I'll tell you what, the dog. Waking up. So the red light is absolute key. Going back to flying one of those, Luke Air Force Base, 310th Fighter Squadron, the Lantern Squadron, low altitude night targeting infrared navigation, blah, blah, blah. We flew at night, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. For the 3 years you were there, you flew at night. And we learned how to flip our schedule. Hey, guess what happens during this time? Baby number 2 shows up. Hayden, my second son. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd really like to sleep through the night when I get to sleep through the night because it's only every 2 weeks. And this new baby here, we're gonna try something new. Knowing that they come to us small, not stupid, and they're just little humans. They haven't been programmed much. They have some pre-programming, but we'll get into that later. Knowing what I know about sleep and sleep cycles, I would not allow him to get into a REM cycle more than once during the day if he was a brand new baby, little baby, but none of this for naps during the day, and then all of a sudden they're awake at night. So at least 1 or 2 or 3 of their naps I would interrupt at the 40-minute, 50-minute where they get a rest, but they have to wake back up again, get fed, played with, whatever, and slowly, within 2 or 3 days, you are shifting their clock to where they will sleep at night. And in about a week, that worked with the rest of the 4 kids. Go figure. Manipulating the human machine. Because that's really basically all I did. I reset the clock by keep winding it during the day and not let it go to sleep at night. Not let it go to sleep during the day. I don't know what it is about. Pardon me. Okay, we're back. So there's another one for you there. A little bit of if you can't get a baby to go through the sleep through the night. I'm not telling you keep it up, but just don't let it get a whole bunch of naps in there. And this is just my personal experience, okay? This is me as a father. I'm not recommending anything. I'm just saying these are some things that have worked in the last 24 years of being a father. So, there will be one surprise guest, and I will talk for an hour on certain things. But we really will have a couple more videos. I plan on doing one of these at least. Well, I'll be doing ones often, and as we get closer, we'll start diving deep in the frame. We'll start focusing. Maybe that was a kind of a 30,000 foot view, maybe from 40,000 feet, and we got into the weeds a little bit. But anyways, there's some tips in there you might want to consider. The red light bulb, considering, you hear that? time I'm being called. Someone fell or got tripped or something. Anyways, Major Kelsey signing off from the great white north with the cold hard truth. I just need to know how to turn this off.